I filmed almost no clips for this, so you get awkward bed video.
I'm a monster. I'm a monster.
So it's time to start working on the vest. And I cut out the pattern for it, and I just finished ironing all the pieces flat so they're not wrinkly and crinkly and all that jazz. But I'm looking at it and I don't know what size I want to make, because when I made the shirt I made it in size 14, but the size 14 vest looks massive. Like right now I've got it cut out to size 14, but so this is already 10 inches across, which would, once cut and unfolded, would be 20 inches across, which is too big for me. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the back and the two front pieces. I'm going to cut out all the lining pieces, which is just this piece and the two vest front pieces, and I'm going to assemble the lining shell first and put that on and see how big it is, and then like size down from there. So that's step one in this process. So I cut out and did the size 14 in the lining, and it was a little, the front was fine, the front was actually perfect, but the back billowed out really, really big. So what I did was I decided, since the front works, and if I go any smaller in the front it'll be too small, there are darts in the back, and these are on the pattern. But what I did was I just made the darts a bit bigger than they are on the pattern, so that they eat just a little bit more fabric, so that the back kind of cinches in a little bit more and it's a little bit smaller, so that the whole thing will fit a little bit better and won't be so massive. So that's the lining. So now I have to cut out the outer shell pieces, and then I have to quilt them, and I'm going to quilt them on brown fleece. So I have the two front pieces and the back piece pinned to 2 layers of brown fleece, which is what I'm going to use to kind of give the vest the volume that it needs when it's quilted. So this was a time-consuming process and very painful. There are lots of spots on my hands where I stabbed myself and I bled. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it to my machine and I'm going to sew and then once I have it sewn down on the edge, I'm going to quilt the lines of her, I'm going to quilt the designs on her vest with this lighter brown thread. So the two front pieces I have pinned together like this, because when I'm going to quilt the front, I'm just going to quilt straight across, so that I have the same amount of stitching on every single, so I will have the same amount of stitching on both pieces, and they're lined up exactly. So these points match, these points down here match, those points match. So the stitching on both halves will be even and symmetrical. This back piece was a little tricky because the darts meant that it didn't want to lie flat on the fabric, so I had to extend the darts up even farther a little bit with folding, and it's a little wonky looking, but it'll be fine once I quilt the back, because her back piece is like, this part's blank and then the bottom half is little squares, so I'm going to use, ooh, I'm just getting stuck on all the pins. I'm going to use these 2 lines to start off my quilting, so it'll be here, and then I'll mark out the even lines for the rest of it to create the squares, so that these little darts will be hidden once it's finished, so you'll never even know they were there. Ow, I keep hurting myself. Each line is just a press I put away.
This bitch is nuclear.
Who's ever been to before?
If only your buying your science lab had been like, this is gonna happen.
So does this mean that Gottlieb predicted Newt's bullshittery? Because Newt's bullshittery is what triggers them sending more than one kaiju.
I think it accelerates it because they weren't expecting another attack for a week, and I think it hasn't been quite a week yet. So I think he like spanked this thing up.
I just have to do this forever. That should be good.
I'm gonna get some close footage for you. Oh wow, it does not like that bright light.
No, I don't imagine it would. It's not.
I can't see shit. It's like a UFO beam.
Ow, I just stabbed my knuckle real good with the sharp end of my blade.
Why do you like this? I'm gonna get this one last thing and then we're gonna call it.
So I've finished quilting the front. Each one of these lines is a presser foot away, and then I quilted the 2 stitches that go straight down the front. So now I'm going to cut these pieces out, and then I have to cut out the lower band, the pockets, the little flap here, and I have to draft a collar for her vest because in all the reference pictures for the movie, she's got a really thin little collar that hugs the back of her neck. But of course the simplicity pattern doesn't come with it, so I decided I have to draft it real quick. So moving right along on the vest pieces, I've cut out the 2 pockets. That's 4 pieces for the pockets. And I've cut out the 2 flaps for the front jacket. Now the collar, which I have to draft, the front flap, and the band at the bottom, I'm going to quilt. The pockets don't get quilted. So for these, I'm only using 1 layer of fleece. So I've only quilted around... So for these, I'm only using 1 layer of fleece to add the volume. So I've only sewn 1/2 down, and then I'll sew this together, flip it right side out, and then sew it onto the vest so that this has a little bit more volume to it. And for the band at the bottom, I'm also going to use fleece because I have to quilt the bottom band. But as you can see, I'm only putting fleece down 1/2 of the band so that when I fold it like this, it's only 1 layer thick. Because if I had put the fleece all the way across and folded it, it would be just as thick as the rest of the vest. This halfway method is the same thing I used when I made the yellow Luke Skywalker ceremony jacket. That's what I did on the cuffs and the collar to keep them from being too thick.
So yeah, the costume is complete. I completed Jyn 100%, and I took almost no footage of the final little details after what you've already seen regarding the vest. So I'm just going to show you the costume. The whole costume minus her boots, the whole costume minus the boots, and the wig, which I haven't styled because at this point I've just been using my own hair, goes in this Impala Skates box. She's all folded up in there. scarf. Shirt, which I did a video on. Pants, which I did a video on. Jacket, and now we're getting on to the other stuff. Gloves. Okay, so what's left in here besides the gun and the tonfa, which I showed in the first video. Everything else in here you haven't seen. So first we have the necklace. Kyber crystal necklace, which is just mounted on some black yarn, which I harvested from my sister's stash one day when she wasn't home. Thanks, Carly. The crystal, the Kyber crystal, is just one of those little like chandelier point crystals that you get from Joann's. And my mom actually helped me with it. She took it and using the Dremel, dremeled off all the like sharp little edges, and she dremeled off the surface so that so that the crystal is all cloudy and Kyber crystal-y. So, is that? The belt I made in one night. It has 4 press studs. The little holster hangs down and has this little belt loop, like leg belt, that goes around my thigh and has another stud. I did not finish like this. You can see the back side that touches my leg is the raw side of the faux leather. This is faux furniture leather that I got from the red tag section at Joann's. And I didn't bother to finish both edges of this like I did the main belt part because it's against my leg the whole time. Just like I didn't finish these straps here that connect it. But I did do the holster is finished on both sides. And my sister helped me with the holster pattern. Thank you again, Carly. So when you put the gun in, it goes and stops, so just that the end sticks out. Like this, because in the reference photos and in the movie, there's no bottom. The end sticks out. You can see the end is painted orange so that it complies with con rules. But to keep the gun from slipping too far down into the holster, because otherwise it would have slipped all the way down to like here, I hand stitched 2 little X's. You're not going to be able to see them, but right here I hand stitched 2 X's while the gun was in the holster all the way through both layers so that it pinched and it doesn't let the gun go farther down the net. And then the baton, which has the little clip on the holster, I hand sewed this across the bar, and it just clips on. Like that. And clips off. And so this was not difficult. It's just a tube that I sewed wrong. I sewed right sides together and then I turned right side out, and I top stitched down to keep it from bubbling and to keep it flat. And then, like I said, they're just hand sewed press snaps. So in theory, her belt also has tiny little silver studs throughout, so one day I might go back in and add those, but for now, the belt is done. And now the only thing that actually matters, the vest. So this is my pride and joy Jyn Erso vest. It's got a heavy weight to it. I can actually sit it down by itself, and it stands up by itself because of how like structured and quilted and it's crazy. I love it. Red lining, functioning pockets, little weird clasp thingies. It's great. It's fabulous. And it's done. So that's my Jyn Erso costume. Thanks for watching.